I am Pawan Mulukutla, Executive Director of Integrated Transport, Clean Air and Hydrogen Program at WRI India. I am speaking to Sujith Nair, CEO of FIDE, about the Beacon Protocol's potential to revolutionize public transport for all stakeholders, from commuters to bus and metro operators. Right now I have multiple apps and I'm using that, but you're saying that I don't need to deal with all these siloed systems, but you're saying that there is one maybe something about this which is able to call all this into one system. And does it then, what do we see as an end result? Do you mean to say that there will be an improvement in efficiency, or there will be better access to systems which users may not be able to access at any given time? Like, how does it really help the end user?
It helps in multiple ways. Now, when I say end user, I want to come from both sides. Me as a consumer of goods and service, and me as a service provider. It could be a local bus public transport operator, or it could be an auto rickshaw driver. Let me first come from the consumer side. What it does is that I don't have to, as you said, download a different app for a different service. I mean, we have 3 or 4 ride-hailing companies. We download 4 different ride-hailing company apps itself. Then we download one app of, say, BMTC, and then another app of a Bangalore Metro or for Delhi Metro if you're traveling across cities. So for each provider, you have to have a different app, okay? Which is probably what I thought was okay. But the fact is that if there is a new service in town, if you didn't know, and you will say, okay, I don't have that app. Now, that is one, at the consumer end. Even for the provider, let's take a local auto rickshaw driver. The local auto rickshaw driver has to be on different platforms separately. This particular platform may not have Pawan as a consumer. So, I have to be on the platform where Pawan could be a consumer. So, I don't know where Pawan is. So, I'd rather be on all apps. So, it kind of creates this calamity of many apps on both ends, sort of making it broken. You're creating many one-to-one silos. But
you're saying one to many or many to many?
Now with Beacon, okay, with an idea like ONDC, ONDC stands for Open Network for Digital Commerce, it becomes a network, not a platform. With the Beacon protocol, you're creating a network of interconnected apps. What does it mean? It means that you can be at one app of your choice, but talk to any provider across any platform, which means I can find a taxi driver across any app. I can, in the same app, can also get a bus ticket. I can also book a hotel room. I can also sort of buy groceries or order food. And that idea was the motivation behind creating ONDC as a DPI with Beacon. So it becomes a network. It allows you the freedom to be only at one place and yet have more choice available from a whole entire spectrum of apps which are bringing providers to you, being at one place. Now, this is from me or you as a consumer side. Now, if you go from a service provider side, whether you are a bus operator, whether you are an auto rickshaw driver, you have the benefit of being at one place of your choice, which is if you built your own, let's say, an ITMS platform as a bus STU, or if you build a ride-hailing app that somebody like Namayatri with JustPay or the moving technologies built for the auto rickshaw driver, you can be at one place where you're saying, here is where I am available to offer you a service and these are my services. It could be a single journey ticket, return journey ticket. In the case of auto rickshaw, I could offer you an AC taxi, a non-AC taxi, or a premium service or a non-premium service. I can define it at one place, have the autonomy to be at one place, control what I can publish as my services, and yet be discoverable by any customer on any app.
What challenges do you see we will encounter? Because, for example, why I bring this is we have so many, like, more than 50, 60 state transport undertakings. We have roughly about, close to almost 2.4 million buses plying, right? You have city buses, interstate, school. The potential to me seems huge, and we already have close to almost 900 kilometers metro, another 500 plus being planned. And, literally we are talking about reimagining the way people will have choices to really move around, whether it is within the city or, across cities or, across states. What are some of the challenges do you see to make this happen? I know Namayatri has been something that has been successfully done. How do you think this can be done for a bus system? Because you have so many entities that we'll need to onboard to bring.
It's an ecosystem driven, not one agency doing it by alone. It's not a winner take all. It's like everyone. It's an ecosystem. It's a win-win collective. That's what it takes. So, which also is a question, right? That how does every operator, every STU, every taxi operator, public or a private platform, sort of see this value, kind of have this mindset that I cannot do this on my own. If I can get onto this DPI, like ONDC, I stand to benefit. I retain my autonomy. I can reach out to a wider set of my customers without having me to do advertising and waiting for them to download my particular app which only offers my service. So this requires a shift in our mental model from a very siloed, independent, let me acquire the customer onto my platform and then offer service, to saying it doesn't matter where the customer, which app the customer is using. Instead, make my service available where the customer is spending time. While doing that, how do I still maintain control on my pricing, my autonomy? Do I have to give commission to a middleman? No, because there is no middleman. It's like internet, it's completely decentralized. So that awareness, that recognition of value, not just for your customers, but for your own business, for your own agency, and then willing to participate. I think we have done that. With ONDC, we are beginning to see the change. Somewhere around January 2023, we roughly started taking transactions in around April 2022. But in January 2023, we were doing about 1,000 transactions a month. I think last month we closed 9 million transactions.
Wow.
Operating across 600 cities. And that's a growth in 1 year. Why? It's not because ONDC is a platform.
Yeah.
ONDC is that sort of an invisible network on which other platforms are coming with their set of providers or goods and services as catalogs and consumers on the other end, saying, can I benefit by using this infrastructure to mine? Just like how a bus company harnesses the roads, ONDC only does that sort of saying, we are here to implement the standards, you people come with your own autonomy and make most of it, we will not come in the way. In fact, ONDC cannot even track these orders and transactions happening on ONDC because they are nowhere in the center. It's peer-to-peer. If Paytm, a user on Paytm is placing a ride order on Namayatri using ONDC network, it is only Namayatri and Paytm who come to know about that.
Okay.
We know for sure that Chennai Metro has joined ONDC, Kochi Metro looks like they have joined too. It is for any mobility operator, any transport operator. I think the larger vision, the larger question being that I as a commuter, what am I concerned about? How do I go from point A to point B with convenience, comfort and in the limit of my affordability, right? I just need the ecosystem to answer that question for me. It is not about what form of transport, it's about what can fulfill that. Now, it could be a multimodal journey, it could be a singular journey, maybe metro does the job for me, okay, maybe the first mile and last mile somebody else offer. It is not a transport form specific question, it's a citizen centric mobility specific need. And that is possible with a DPI thinking, with an idea of an open network like ONDC to say, you as a customer, you just say where do you want to go? From A to B. Let the network, let the ecosystem of all the providers on the network get you an answer.
I have a question here, Sujith. We are a big proponent of public transport, know that. Do you see this enabling public transport system?
Absolutely. The cognitive load of, is the bus coming on time? Where is the bus? Or is the metro available in the next 5 minutes? Or how do I get to the metro? Are all scattered across different systems. But how do I put things together? If I want to understand the traffic condition, which probably Google Maps makes visible, but there's a metro information coming separately, the bus tracking is coming separately. It kind of creates this cognitive load of for me to stitch all this information from different apps together. With open network, all this will start seamlessly coalescing and coming to me and telling me, you have 4 options to get to. For the first time, you are resolving this information asymmetry and data silo problem and making it available at the point of need, which is for the customer to look at all at one place and say, then I can make my right choice. And with public transport, if we have a public transport which can move faster as with a dedicated corridor or with buses and things like that, I can get a cheaper ride, I can get there faster. Maybe speed is not the concern, but time is not the concern, maybe affordability is a point. I can factor all of that at one place and take a decision. So in my sense, if we do this at a population scale, if you want to change mobility as a behavior, and if you want to change that and tip it into population scale, you have to empower the customer. That's the fundamental thinking.
But I do want to bring the dimension of equity into this. So are we saying only people with smartphones can make these choices, or are we saying that we can enable this with any kind of system?
I don't think it's just for smartphones, and even for UPI, I think a good number of people use feature phones to use UPI. It's not a smartphone thing, so there is no exclusion by device problem. I would say that even if you don't have a phone, it is actually possible for you to offer assisted services. We are having a conversation on one of such ideas on education and skilling, another network using backend like ONDC, which will be probably part of ONDC, soon to be part of ONDC. We're talking about how do you make scholarships reach down to people who do not have access, economically backward, because that's what scholarships are meant for. We're saying, is it possible for a local kirana store or a local post office or a banking correspondent to access the services on their systems through an open network like ONDC, but have an analog conversation with the customer and assist the customer? There was nothing in the design of internet that you could see and say, oh, after 50 years there will be a ChatGPT. But it created that playground, that soil for this kind of innovation to emerge, because it reduced the cost of innovation and solved for agency. And that's what open networks do. That's the second order implications of how we solve for equity and inclusion. Why kind of enabling this innovation to happen? It's not for one bus company to solve for equity alone. DPI is not about solving it yourself. It's not about being the lone hero, which is the typical mindset of an entrepreneur or anybody building tech. They build sufficient systems. They solve for sufficiency. Oh, I have to solve for everything. DPI is actually the other way. DPI is you do what is necessary and then distribute that ability to solve. In India, language diversity, all our apps are still in English. That's another inclusion. How do we, today with AI like Bhashini, somebody else at the edge, it is not necessary for BMTC to implement Bhashini. Maybe the Paytm or another app on ONDC will implement Bhashini, but BMTC services are available in that language without BMTC having to invest a penny in making it language compatible. And that possibility, that distributing that ability to solve is what DPI does. An open network with backend particularly is designed keeping this in mind.
I have one final question. Why don't we sit here? What do you see are, how do we ensure that the current policies are, kind of tuned to DPI, or, what kind of an enabling policy ecosystem would you need? And also, as a closing question, I would say, what are some of the way forward thoughts you have on how this DPI would come through? For example, whether it's green fencing, whether it's in low emission zones, where do you see the policy measure?
No, quite interesting. It's fascinating how we're seeing DPI sort of actually enable better policy enablement, in the sense, adoption of policy. So I can probably give you an example. Let's take this example of, let's say a city wants to kind of create a low emission zone. It come out with a policy saying that during the peak hours on working days, you are only allowed to use EV pickup trucks for logistics, or electric vehicles or e-buses to ply on the roads, at least for those particular hours of the day, or maybe when there is a air quality situation. Now, today conventionally what happens is, any particular department that is overseeing that will probably issue a policy, more like a bigger announcement, like on the website, maybe a big PDF document, and hoping that everybody will read it and implement it. And each of these agencies have to implement it with DPI and with protocol like backend, which is what we have designed, keeping this in mind. It is possible to disseminate this policy directly onto the network as code, as machine readable code, such that the policy dissemination is automatic and instantaneous, which means all the platforms that are on this network are automatically aware of this policy and have an ability to factor that into their service delivery pretty much on the go, like any other software code. So it means it is possible for me to say city of Bangalore wants to define the central business district as a low economic zone from say 9 in the morning till 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. on weekdays. It is probably possible for BBMP or any of the relevant city department to issue that policy on a network and let the bus organizations, the local taxi operators or the auto rickshaws on their apps like Namayatri, or even the pickup trucks or the gig workers delivering food orders, they are all automatically aware and they can be notified, and they know, even the customers know that when they're searching for these services, only these ones are showing, and they know why only these clean, green vehicle options are being shown. Do both of them together. In fact, this will actually create more impetus and more information and more open data, going back to the data question, to actually create more evidence-based policy. So it means you can do policy sandboxing on a network to see if you're getting your policy formulation right and constantly improve. That is another possibility with policy adoption, and I see that especially with adoption of green agenda. I think these dynamic programmable policies on network is definitely a force we should reckon and adopt at scale.
No, thank you. I think this is simply brilliant. It just opens up all kinds of possibilities, whether you're talking how to manage traffic in a city, or the transition, the green transition that we are talking about, you know, even enabling policies. And I really like what you talked about, this whole policy sandbox, right? So I think we're talking about a whole new imagination, and I really go back to what you said in the beginning, that we're talking about a new mental model with this whole DPI. Thank you so much, Sujith, for joining us. I think it's fantastic, and I hope our viewers have been able to understand what DPI is and what's its potential and how does it really apply in the whole mobility sector itself, right? Because that's one of our focus areas, and how do we transition. But I would also be interested at some other point to understand about this whole UEI thing that you've been talking about. Yeah. I think that's also, I'm sure it's going to really transform the way our whole energy transactions happen.
It's the same mental model. And once you get the mental model, the imagination, whether it's energy or mobility, it's kind of the same manifestation. But it takes that shift in the mental model, to your point. But yeah, otherwise, great conversation, Pawan. Thank you so much. I loved having this and love coming back here.
Yeah.
As always. So much. Thank you. Bye-bye.